What is up, gang? Welcome back to another episode of Inspired By. My name's Will, and I make an assortment of music under the moniker Hush Child. New studio environment today, so I figured we'd try a new sound as well. So today we're going to look at the genre Hardwave. A few of you have been down in the comments section and had mentioned Hardwave, and I'd actually never heard of the genre, nor had I listened to it. So if, like me, you're going in brand new, let me give you an overall vibe of what you're looking for. It's kind of hard style trance synths mixed with kind of EDM trap-like drums in its simplest form. And if you want to check out some artists that really do the genre justice, get a feel for it, I would strongly recommend Skeler, Juche, and Deadcrow. I'm hoping I pronounced those correctly, and they were the artists that were presented to me as an introduction. It's a super fun genre with lots of little intricacies. So as always, the stems and the Frozen project are available at the Patreon, but for now, let's jump into it. We've really only got 4 main groups, but as you can see, there's a lot going on. There's a lot more automation as well. But we've got the Reese group, all of the basses, that kind of thing. We've got the Trance group, which is where all of our hard synths are going to be in there. We've got our drum group, which had a lot more sound design than I was first expecting. And then we've got kind of our effects group, all the noise, Foley, that kind of thing. There's a smattering of other instruments and effects, but it really is those kind of 4 main groups. But like I said, there's lots of automation, plays a huge role in allowing each of the instruments to kind of evolve and be manipulated by one another. For this video, I'm mainly going to focus on bars 17 to 25, and that's because it's the drop of the song. It's got all the main elements, and the things that come before that are just arrangement techniques. So you're basically going to get a flavor of the whole track anyway. Let's start by checking out the Reese group, shall we? I'm super excited to show you guys this one. So what do we have going on? So with the first Reese, I wanted kind of a top sound, a noisy synth. And I went with this LD Forever 2014. Oh, I should mention, a lot of the sounds that you're going to see are going to come from this Hardwave pack. You can see I've got 5 sounds in there. And I basically downloaded those presets from Splice. They're on screen right now. The ones with the hearts are the sounds that I really liked and I thought did the genre justice. And then once I had them in Ableton, Serum opened up, I'm just manipulating those sounds and kind of dialing it into my taste just a little bit more. So originally the LD Forever sound sounded like this. Originally it didn't have the attack that it has now, and it was definitely a lot more noisy. It had a lot more reverb, which you can see I've turned off there. It had a lot more delay as well, which again, I've turned off. So what I did with this sound is just EQ it to get rid of some of that noise. And that's just gonna sit in those kind of mid frequencies there. And I'm just taking the width down a little bit with utility. I'm then adding this big Reese bass underneath. Oof. And that's really going to be the flavor of the bass. So with this, I'm using this Flume Reese bass that I have there, spelt wrong. Made sure to roll off the cutoff just a little bit more, and then added the EQ8 and Shaper Box, so it had a little bit of a bounce to the sound. With all of the Shaper Box presets that I'm using, I'm taking the volume up to 60% or higher. So the sound isn't completely ducked. Didn't want that sound. I wanted it to start with some volume, but just have a little bit more automation towards the end of the sound on a quarter note margin. After that, I put these Reeses into a group, used a little bit of glue compression. We've got an EQ, you're going to see a lot of mid-side action to make sure that there isn't too much noise in the sideband profile. We want to save that space ideally for the synths and for the ear candy. And then utility just to put the bass in mono. So this is the difference with and without those plugins. So not a world of difference, but again, just taming some of that sideband profile a little bit. Let's talk about the drums real quickly. I think they're exciting in both the intro and the main section of the song. Sounding a little bit different in each section. This one's got more of kind of a burial vibe to it. Let's check it out. So much reverb, right? So this track is heavily influenced by Skeler's track Tel Aviv. And something I noticed is that the kick had loads of reverb on it to keep this kind of ambient tunnel effect going, as did the snare. So I've tried to replicate that. The way that I've done that is just to have one dry kick here. And then I have kick verb underneath, which takes all the sub out with the EQ. We've got the transient master, so there's not too much of an attack there. And then the Valhalla vintage verb mix is turned all the way up. So on those occasional down beats every 2 bars, you've just got a little bit of noise there. And that drifts into the snare, which is being sent to our first return here with the Valhalla vintage verb again. Loads of reverb there. The thing that I really like about the intro drums is that it's got this kind of future garage sound. I'm just using a tambourine sound, 2 different hits, and I've kind of just automated those throughout. So if we click on those, you can see that this one's up 5.75 dB, but this one's just sitting at 0. So again, we've got some different volume automation here. The hats, I'm just using 2 different pitched hats. Let's just listen to the intro drums with that Reese group again. And then just kind of put that 4 to the floor kick there. Starting to high pass the drums. So let's jump into the drums for the main section. And there's some really lovely sound design here. Again, taking inspiration from Skeler, Tel Aviv. So what do we have going on? Well, of course, the main thing is we've got this 4 to the floor kick. Not much to write home about the kick. It was the same as before. We've just taken the EQ off. We got that snare, rolled off all of the low end. You can hear a little bit of that reverb send as well. The Foley is where it gets really exciting. Just went to Splice, found the Foley textures that I really liked. A whole array of different sounds. And just looped over and over again. The next Foley sound that I have here, you can see again, I've put in mid-side mode, just making sure that in the sideband profile, we don't have too much of that low to mid frequency stuff. It's all just ear candy. Tried to make sure that if there's any pitch in the drums, we've pitched it to the key of the track. As you'll see with this little bit of Foley here, this is kind of a halftime snare beat if you liked. I like the tone that was here. Originally, it was in a different pitch. So I've just made sure to pitch that down 6 semitones so it fits with the track. Got a little Foley click that I thought, that'll be great for an offbeat hi-hat. Pitched up, then pitched down. So you're kind of just plucking those sounds out of Splice or a field recorder, however you like, and just making sure that they fit with the overall tone of the drums. Let's check those out real quick. And then under this, I was kind of lazy, just chose this nice hi-hat loop from Splice here. And then I just chose the bits that worked out really nicely. You can see that I've kind of pitched these a little bit. And then we've got this nice Sunny D open hi-hat as well that plays underneath it. No EQ on these elements because we're also throwing it into a group that does all the EQ for us, and a little bit of side chain action with the downbeat kick as well. With the Foley group, we're doing the same thing, EQing those elements, but we're using a line delay. I've just set our Foley 5 milliseconds apart from the left ear to the right ear. If you're wearing headphones, I can show you what this sounds like before and after. So you should be able to hear the sound travels between the pans a little bit, which is kind of interesting. We've also got sidechain compression on the Foley as well. We're going to come back to some Foley sidechain a little bit later on when we look at the trance synths, which is probably the reason why you're here. I think it's sounding a little bit future garage right now. And if you want to see that kind of content in future, let me know. I'd absolutely love to cover the genre. The second half of the video is the most exciting in my opinion, but I wanted to help you out with something else real quick. When you're finished up with these tracks, you need to release it somewhere. And that's why I do it with our sponsor today, DistroKid. I release all my music with DistroKid. They make it so easy to get your music on all of the streaming platforms. That's Amazon, that's Spotify, Apple Music, and over 150 online stores. And that includes social medias like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, which you probably know by now is the way to blow up your music. So if you're interested in releasing your music with DistroKid, make sure that you use the link in the description below, as you'll get 7% off your first year. Now let's get back to finishing this track. Okay, so let's get into our main trance section, shall we? As you can see here, there's a whole bunch of stacked layers, and they're not all playing the same thing, which is going to be key to creating interest within your track. So let's just have a look what it sounds like soloed. So I started off by creating this pattern. Like I said, we're in the scale of F sharp minor. I got the idea for this pattern from both the kind of old school Ministry of Sound trance compilations from like the 90s, early 2000s, but also you can check out the Miss Helen as well on YouTube. I hope I pronounced your name correct. Got loads of trance-like melodies and content on their YouTube channel. So I found a nice preset sound that I liked, and then I wanted to just get the bass pattern in. So I've pressed 0 on these keys, so you can just focus on the highlighted ones here. And we're just doing F sharp, but check out this kind of pattern. It's not just back and forth. So velocity was key here, added a little bit of delay. The lowest notes are the quietest. And then up here, I'm mostly playing a melody that works on its own. If we took these notes out, we would still have a top line melody. And for the most part, these notes are playing between the bass notes. Occasionally, like on a downbeat, they'll fall together, but for the most part, they play between. The difference between the main section and the intro section is the main section, I'm keeping the synth unticked in mono and keeping that portamento all the way down. When you see my intro synths and I click on Serum, you'll notice that mono is ticked, and I'm bringing that portamento up with always selected. That creates a little bit more of a bend in the note. So when you hear my intro synth, you can kind of hear those bends and you can hear that attack. Whereas when you listen to my main synth, so that really is going to separate the intro of the song from the main section. Originally with that first group, there was no plugins. World of difference, right? I wanted to make sure that they all mixed. At first, you don't need to worry about that. Just get your pattern sorted. We'll come back to all of the effects after. Then I created an ARP pluck, something that was an anchor point to the track. And you'll notice with anything that is an accent, something that I want it to stand out the mix, I'll just have the melody notes. So at the bottom, we've got a very quick plucky sound. And then above, we've got a much longer, more obnoxious synth. And then I'm just making sure that the synth sounds fuller by creating one more sound, which is called mid here. And then we're really constricting those frequencies. So all of those characteristics really color the sound and make it sound like one instrument. Without one of them, the instrument doesn't sound the same. Let's start with the ARP pluck. With the trance group, I'm using a little bit of overdrive, some shaper box to give it some bounce, EQ8, the RC20, the DJ filter, sidechain compression set to Foley, which was something I said I would mention, and then a limiter. So this is all pretty self-explanatory. Overdrive's going to give it a lot more punch. It's going to sound more aggressive. Shaper box set to 75%. Remember what I said earlier in the video. It's going to give it some bounce. EQ8, DJ filter, and then the compressor. Why is it set to Foley? Well, I wanted to make sure that all of those lovely Foley sounds that we had were going to come through. And originally you couldn't really hear those characteristics. So I did a little sidechain action so that the synth would duck when those characters came through. It's subtle, but again, it's all those minute details that help you become a better producer. Let's check out the synths without some of these plugins. So there's quite a lot of low end there that we don't want. So we're adding that EQ8. A little bit of bounce with Shaper. Add in overdrive, makes it more aggressive. Dial that into taste. DJ filter allows us to automate those frequencies. Little bit of movement with the compressor once the Foley plays. All coming together. And you can see that with my particular synths as well, we've got the EQ8 on pretty much every synth. Each synth is a different sound. So you can see huge saw here, trance saw, altruism there, different EQ for each of these sounds as well. Remember mid-side, a line delay on some of the synths so they sound wider. DJ filter on some of those as well. And then finally, you may have heard I've got a much brighter sound right at the end here to just create a little bit more of a lead sound. Super constrained just with the high frequencies. And the thing that I did with this particular synth, as well as bring out the attack, it is just a preset. And then go to my matrix. I chose envelope 3 as a new shape and set it to the master tune. This gives it a little bit of pitch shift. So if I change that output to 100%, you'll hear the pitch. I'm just bringing that down a little bit. So it just has a little bit of character. It's just bending out of the key a little bit. Again, giving it its own feel, its own flavor. Finally, I top off everything for this track with this effects group, which is made up of operator white noises, sounds that I created myself, and then a bunch of splice noise sounds because I was just being a little bit lazy. All of these effects and pieces of noise are automated. So you can see different volume automations, things being bypassed, the auto pan being used to create that kind of tremolo effects. There's lots of noise here and that creates the ambience of your track. So I go back and I add those effects at the end of my arrangement journey and it just kind of glues the track together. Like I said, adds ambience and it makes it easier for the listener to digest. If they hear some white noise rising, they know that a drop is coming. If they hear a cymbal or a white noise hit, then they know that's the start of the new section. So again, just makes your track a little bit easier to follow the narrative. Let's have a listen to the track in its entirety. So there we have it, guys. I've got space to move around, unlike before. What do you think of the new space, by the way? I might do a little behind the scenes tour, maybe over on the Patreon. Let me know if you want to see that. I've got a few things to set up still, but we're getting there. It might be a little bit bright in the background. We might change some things around, but I'm really enjoying the space. I hope you're enjoying the view. Let me know, as always, what you want to see in future content, what artists you're listening to, what genres you're listening to, and generally just, how you're doing. Check in. We got the Patreon, we got the Discord. There's lots of exciting stuff to come. So just visit the link down below. For now, guys, I thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.